Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the hashtag A Career in Tech series. So I've got a really interesting video for you guys today, and I'll be introducing my friend Charlie, who has recently moved to a new role, and he's 24, and as you can see by the title, he's earning a lot of money. And I thought it'd be good to share his story with you guys, so anyone who's a graduate or looking to move into tech can understand what they might need to do and what experience they might need to have to sort of get to that level. I'll put a picture now of the format of the video in terms of the questions asked, and there'll be timestamps as well throughout the video, so if you're just interested in certain parts. But again, I urge you to watch the entire thing, as I feel it's very interesting to talk to Charlie about, and there's a lot of value to be gained from the video. I hope you guys enjoy it, and yeah.
So yeah, obviously I met Charlie back when I was in the second year of my university, mainly for helping coding stuff. Charlie's a coding god. Um, I met him through a friend, so I know someone on the course, and then he used to know Charlie from college, right? So
Yeah,
that's kind of
college days.
this is how you meet people on the big bucks. They're helping people somewhere. So right, so the next part. Where did you study to start with? We'll start from A level. So
Hello. Yeah, I went to college in what was it? North Forest area, New Forest even. So it was Brockenhouse College, doing computing and IT, that kind of stuff. It was the closest place that did it. Nowhere else computing anywhere near me. So, that's
so
cool.
what kind of results did you get from your A levels then?
So I think computing I ended up getting an A. A lot of that was coding tests and things like that, so it's quite easy for me. And then IT, I'm pretty sure I got like a C or maybe a push of B. It was a lot of courseworky kind of stuff I didn't really get along with too much. And then I did maths as well, which I think I got a B as well. Generally, all right-ish, nothing special.
Yeah, I was trash at maths. I got a D, so better than what I did.
Hey, I did use of maths, which was like the easy one as well.
So obviously you applied for uni, you went to Brighton, right?
Yeah,
What did you apply for? And which units did you apply for? Because everyone had like a first and second choice, and so
yeah. I applied to Brighton as my first choice, and then I think it was Bristol and Bath because I think I had to have three.
is there any reason you chose Brighton in the end? Like in terms of the course you did, and was it reputable and all that sort of stuff? Or
Yeah, it was kind of. I think when I was at college, like we went to all the different unis and just walked around the city or whatever they were in, and went up to uni on their open days. And Brighton seemed like a decent place. It was like pretty relaxed, nothing too crazy. Um, it's more just kind of based on a feel than anything because they're not the highest rated uni in the world, but
like you say,
they get by.
did you look at the Russell groups and stuff, or how good they were in providing the course you were going forward? You just kind of go, "Ah, that one seems alright," and
It was a mix, but I knew that they were doing Java, and like I've been doing Java for like probably 3 years before I started uni, so it's something I already had some background on at least. I didn't want to do anything too like crazy, whether they do like C plus plus or something. If I wasn't that sure on, but it's kind of a little bit of both, really. It wasn't any
fair enough.
research on it.
Obviously, you touched upon that you were coding prior to uni. So, do you want to talk about
Yeah,
sort of the self-taught stuff and without education, what you were doing and when you started coding and how that sort of helped you, I guess,
yeah.
in uni?
So I probably started coding roughly when I was about 11. So it wasn't really proper coding, but it was a full on coding at least. I was playing a game, Gary's Mod, some people may be aware of. We're kind of running a server, doing a lot of the management of that. And there's a little add-on called YMod, which let you do some coding stuff in game. You can make little tools and do stuff with random like holograms and stuff like that. It's kind of my first intro to programming. It was basic imperative. I don't think anything too much more on that. So they had if statements, and they kind of gave you the rough idea of the problem solving behind coding. Then that was like the first look at it. And then I think when I was about 14, 15, I think Minecraft was the big hype. So that's when I kind of walked into Java. So I tried to make some little mods and things like that in Java. It gave me a good intro to a language that's an actual real language that people use. And that was, and yeah, so that was a really good start for like jumping into uni, I think we got these little coursework things. They were tiny, like problem solving. You handed it in, submitted it, and you got a grade out of it. I think I finished the whole year's worth in the first month, because I'd already done Java before, and that whole year was pretty much learning the basics of coding because most people hadn't ever coded before. So it gave me a real good head start that I could kind of add on to during uni instead of like just learning to code the basics.
Yeah, obviously when I was 11, I was probably playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare, so
I was doing that as well. I think I was doing both.
didn't touch code until obviously uni, not even in A level. So,
Yeah.
would you say that? Also, I mean, would you say that helped, and how much would you say it helped in uni?
Yeah, so I think it helped me a lot of the coding stuff, but then not all of uni's coding, is it? There's a lot of theory behind it and things like that, which I struggled on quite a bit actually. But it really helps with that coding, and I think learning the stuff that's more used in industry, which is like what gave me a head start into actually getting into industry after uni at least. Because in uni I was looking at things like in Java you have a Spring framework, which is pretty much most companies would use Spring if they're doing Java. And that's not something that they teach in uni when I was there, at least. So that gave me that head start to actually push into industry standards and learn that side of it while still trying to get by with my actual other like theory courses. So I didn't have to focus on the actual coding. It was nice.
Yeah, I guess that leads up to the next part. Then. So, what did you like, when you finished uni? What sort of grades did you get, and how do you feel uni helped you with the
Yeah.
whole experience and getting into industry and stuff? Would you say it's relevant, or would you say they could have done more, or you know?
Yeah, so I think I got a 2-1 in the end. I did quite well in all the programming ones, but I failed one of the more theory based and that kind of stuff. I got by. I think it does help. It gives you a good step into industry. A lot of them provide some really good like career advice. I went to a little bit of it, but I know a lot of people went to it quite heavily, and it really helped them build their CV and like how to actually do an interview, because that's a whole different ball game to actually sitting and coding. Completely different world. I don't think a lot of it I don't actually use, but I think it gives you that step in. Like if someone sees your CV and they see a computer science degree on there, they can kind of hope that you'd have some sort of idea at least. It kind of filters out people who don't have it.
When you go to uni, we all learn about whether that does actually contribute, but obviously,
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot of things you learn. Like I'm sure a lot of us who go to uni to computer science will learn about the big O notation and never do any of that ever again in the future. So
But you use it for interviews about it, but yeah, I think the certificate is more than the actual stuff you do there. I think in terms of working wise.
yeah, obviously, I think a lot of people just say when you go to uni for programming, you kind of have to self teach yourself regardless. A lot of it is how
Yeah.
much time you put in, right?
Yeah, no one can teach you to code. Like they can't just read something and you'll learn to code. You've actually got to sit and put time in and do it yourself, which it gives you some time to at least at uni. You have your 3 years that you can kind of learn all that by yourself on the side. So rather than have to sit and work.
Got any other sort of advice then to people who I guess maybe sitting in uni and possibly struggling in the course? Any advice to help them get through?
I'd say if you want to do it for career wise, not for like if you're going into PhD and research and things like this, completely irrelevant. But like focus on learning to code in your own time. Focus on one language. There's loads of languages around there. I'd say stick to one, get a really good grasp of it, and like you can expand after that. But I did Java quite heavily, and now I'm doing Go. It's like completely different languages, but the same theory. Once you know a language, you kind of set, and you can just move to anything really, as long as you. Well, I do back end stuff, so we're writing a lot of REST and a database and just back endy things. So they're all the same throughout, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've kind of realised that now with whole JavaScript. Obviously, when I was in uni, trying to learn Python, Java, everything, I just sucked at coding. But now that I've spent the past year and a half doing JavaScript only and on obviously Service now, I've come to learn the fundamentals of it. And then I was tutoring someone doing Java, and I didn't understand. I didn't actually know what a hash map was really, even though we learned it all at uni. But then I managed to make a program out of it and show him how it works. And
Yeah.
So the fundamentals do count.
There's
So-
always similarities between them all, yeah.
So you didn't do an internship, did you? You just did 3. Was it 3 straight years of uni?
I did like 2.5, then I got ill and I had to take a year out, and then I did my final like half a year. So I did it over 4 years, but 3-year course.
3
I
years.
was looking at interns. I applied to a few, but none of them were too like codey. Most of them were more like IT support that I saw, so I didn't really fit.
Fair enough. Would you, obviously, you didn't do an internship and I did, and for everyone I speak to, I always recommend doing one. So what would you say, in from your perspective, like, would you still recommend it? Would you say that even if you don't do an internship, is it worth doing summer interns, or do you reckon it's fine to just do 3 years and you still find a job?
It's very different for everybody, really. I think a lot of people, they'll kind of burn out from uni. I think for 2 years, so taking a year out, you kind of realize what you've actually like. You kind of get that motivation back to do your last year. And then, like you did, you had your final year stuff that you were working on, which was kind of related to what you did in your placement. It can help you out a lot like that. But I just had to make up a random project to do. I had nothing to base it on. It's fine for me, but like it's hard to keep that motivation. I did think of dropping out a few times. I think that was mainly my second year, but like you hit that kind of burnout point, which you can help with. And then like if you get a good one, you can start getting some real industry experience in coding and things. So depends how comfortable you are with coding and like just sitting it through. I think for me, it was fine to not do it. Well, it ended up finally. So I've got decent stuff out of it. But I know a lot of people can. It's really hard to find a job straight out of uni. So I think that year can really help that as well.
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely agree. So, all right. So now we've kind of got through all the education part of your life, leading to the up to those points. So, do you want to start on your career then? So, obviously, you finished uni, and how long you've been working, where you've been working, what you've been doing prior to what you're doing now.
Yeah. So finished uni. I had a job offer with American Express. That was just a general engineer. So I was coding some stuff, full stack at that point. I did that before I actually graduated, so managed to get a role that wasn't on the grad schemes. So that started a lot earlier, which meant I was kind of working for 2 months before all the grads started, I think. So in that role, I was doing full stack. So I was doing a mix of JavaScript, Java, and just learning the basics of what it's like in industry, because it's a completely different world as soon as you jump into that than uni. I think spent 2 years there, I think, and then moved to another team. Started doing some Go at that point. So at that point, I was like self-taught Go for about a year before I moved, just playing about in spare time and things like that. That got me set up into the next team, where I was doing a pure back-end role in like quite a high priority team. I don't know what they'd call them, but like if they go down, then there's a big problem. Because there'll be a lot of customer impact at that point if anything goes wrong.
Yeah.
So that was a good experience. Kind of sitting in quite a big team as well. They were spread across the US, UK, starting to build a team in India as well. So I was working at a lot larger scale, which was interesting. It's a good learning experience. So you got to go through all those different styles of team. But in a company like Amex, they're so big that every team almost can feel like a different company. They'll do stuff completely differently and working on completely different stuff, like completely different tech stack even. Deploying on the same system in the end, but very, very different, yeah.
So would you say the work you were doing was interesting to you, or would you say that, obviously you said you switched teams, so was it boring, and then when you switched, did it get more interesting, or how do you feel your experience was with the work you were doing over the 2 years?
Yeah, so the first 2 years, I think that was a lot of me just getting to grips with writing code for a company and getting used to that. Like, you're writing code for somebody else rather than just little side projects that you can dump whenever you like. Working the whole agile, getting used to the whole team structure. I think I enjoyed it for a long time. We were doing greenfield Java stuff in the end before I left. Writing a whole new kind of system in Java, Spring, using things like Kafka. So there's a lot of like enterprise standard kind of tooling we were starting to use. So I learned a lot of different things and kind of bring everywhere with me. But by the time I left, we were kind of at a point where we'd written 10 different microservices in the year. And we were in production starting to work, and we were just adding bits to it at that point, which is when I started looking around a little bit. Then I did my internal move. So that was kind of I knew that whole system because I was there from the beginning. So I guess I partly got bored. I'm not sure bored's the right word. It was more just I wasn't really engaged as much, I guess. It was hard to keep motivated with it the whole way through. Doing the same thing here and there, and then moved to a new team, completely different world by doing Go and a lot of what we were using. It's like a huge pre-made system for a bunch of people worked on for the last 3 years, rather than a brand new one. It was getting that whole knowledge over what happens if you jump into a big team that has all that stuff already there for you, which is probably what you'll be doing in most of your jobs, working on pre-made systems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I was still enjoying it, but it was just I was open to seeing what was around, and I knew that I started doing Go, and that kind of really took off in my head that I wanted to be doing Go, and I wanted to get away from Java for a bit. I don't know whether it was more of just Go was shiny or what, because that's not always the best way to go around. But it was alright in the end.
Yeah, well,
so far.
I just want to mention, obviously, for your university project, you basically built your own programming language, right? So
Yeah, that was my final project.
Charlie's the type of guy who likes to build stuff from scratch, whereas I would hate that stuff. So whereas ServiceNow, a lot of it's built for you, and you've got a lot of function and API calls, and it does a lot for you. Charlie's the guy who would build ServiceNow, whereas I don't want to build anything from scratch. I like to have components already made and build on top of things. Not saying I don't like building from scratch and like entire new processes, but in terms of like actual systems and stuff, that's
The base of it. Yeah,
way beyond my
yeah, it's where I like greenfield projects, which has led to where I am now, I guess.
Sure. So do you want to quickly mention, obviously, if you're comfortable, like what sort of salary ranges you were on at Amex between the first year, second year?
Yeah, so I jumped in like early 30s ish is when I first jumped in. I kind of asked for, I think I was asking for high 20s at that point, just because I was looking quite late for a job, and I would have just accepted anything for some experience. Amex being a big company as well, so it's a big name to put on your CV for sure. So looking at that, they gave me higher than I asked for, so it's not bad really. Got a couple of they do yearly pay rise and things like that, so I got that. I had a promotion through there, which is another percentage on top. So I got a few percents on top of that. And then I moved over to that other team. I didn't get any promotion for that move. It was kind of just a straight up 1-to-1 move over. And they gave me mid 40s at that point, which I think is kind of the standard for that area. They have different pay bands, and they just kind of equaled that out again, that move.
Fair enough. But like you said, important note is that obviously when you're looking for a company, salaries and everything at the start of your career, you didn't even go for a graduate role. You went straight for a proper engineering role.
Went role, yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's about the company you sit with, because that'll impact your CV moving forward, and that's what allows you to get your next role. So it's important to consider.
Amex a very good company to have on your CV and to have in your good books as well. It's like when I left, they've given me an offer to come back if I ever want to. So you've always got that freedom with a big company like that. It's definitely not worth burning bridges with companies like that.
Of course.
But yeah, it's a huge learning experience to jump in something. Especially, I think, if you get a chance to work on Greenfield, I'd definitely take it. Because it's quite rare in big companies. Most of their systems are already in place, and you're just kind of adding things to it and eventually cleaning bits up. But you can learn a huge amount in a company like that, how they work, and of all the regulations as well. In a finance company, regulations is massive, so it's good to get it at that kind of level. And if you jump to ones that have less regulations, I guess, or they don't put as much emphasis on it, you actually know how to stay, not get in trouble, I guess is the right way to put it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so obviously from a background point of view, you're developing in the finance industry, so that's, again, quite important. So we'll move on to where you're currently working.
Yeah.
So what you're currently doing, and just explain about your current role now, since you've moved.
Yeah, so about, a month and a half ago, I think, I started a little company called Banked. So we're a fintech startup, very small. So Amex are around, I think, 60,000 employees right now. And I jumped into a 50. I think there's 51 of us now, possibly. So we're working on bank-to-bank transfers for loads of different purposes. So we've got the whole idea is we've got low transaction fees, and we're competing with faces like MasterCard and Visa. So pretty big competition, but that's what we're looking at. So right now the projects are kind of around making it global, but allow for global payments. Because right now we're making the most out of open banking, which is mainly UK and EU, but we're only in the UK right now with all the transactions. So that's kind of where we're going next is global, like allowing for it to actually work globally.
Yeah. So I'll just touch upon that. Obviously, fintech. A lot of these sort of mentions is financial tech, right? So that's the financial
Yeah,
tech in sort of industry sort of space, and like Charlie mentioned, it's like merchant to merchant. So I guess an easy example is you might have a shop where you buy some shoes on, and what the service they're providing is that when you do the payment, Mastercard and Visa will take a small percentage of. So if you say £40, they might take like say £2 from that, whereas banks are trying to get to even lower, like
yeah,
significantly lower, so maybe like 10 pence. We will mention that this would be good for charitable organizations and stuff because they're trying to because when you give to charity, you don't want to fees to incur. But obviously, it's for everyone, right? Everyone wants to make their money and not lose money in the process.
yeah. So it's all about that low transaction fee. We do the whole checkout system as well, so you don't have to worry about holding payment details and all that stuff. So in that way, it's more secure. You can kind of trust it with no accounts, none of that. It's just like, authenticated through your mobile app. Is the whole thing like your fingerprint scanner or your face scanner will then just approve the purchase, and you can see, and it should go straight through, nice and easy.
Like you said, do you move from what did you say American Express had employee wise 50,000 or
60,000 right now.
60,000, and now you're 51. So what would you say is the
Yeah.
transition in moving from a large group to a small one, and how would you, I guess, rate that experience, and would you suggest that people go into a smaller company first or a big company first and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So big company, you have everything very like set in stone how it's working. You can make impact, but it's a lot smaller, and you have to go through a lot more process to actually get there with it. Small company, you can say something and it might be there next day. Like you can get changes made really really quickly. Um, I think to start with, I'd probably suggest big companies still. It's good to get in one, and you can kind of just learn the ropes more. Um, a lot of these smaller startups, they won't take grads because it's a lot more like work for other employees as well. So like I'd have to take out a lot of time to sit and work with them more, and they can't. It's why the industry for like entry levels kind of tight right now. I think the mid senior level is really really crazy. Uh, you can get a lot of jobs right now for a lot, um, but that kind of entry level is quite hard still. But I think, yeah, the big companies is probably where you want to go first. In my opinion, this is. Some people it might work off better, but in big companies they do like apprenticeship schemes too. So if you haven't even got a grad, you're not even don't have a degree, or you're doing a completely unrelated degree, you can walk in to somewhere like American Express and start learning. They do boot camps and things like that for you. They provide loads and loads of resources, and they get access to things like O'Reilly books. You can read any O'Reilly book for free, and LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, all that kind of. That's all set, and you're given that. So I think you can kind of take your time and learn stuff a lot better in that kind of environment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, even though I came out of uni, obviously I haven't explained my story, but I'll just mention it here a little bit. I was obviously made redundant from McLaren when I finished because of the whole COVID situation. But because I did my internship at Panasonic, that was a large company already on my CV, and you get to experience so many different areas, especially in business to business sort of environment. And then if you go to a small company after that, they hound on your experience because obviously you learn stuff that they'll want to use, and then you can keep jumping about, you can keep going up and down because at the end of the day you're just learning from different places, and every single company you jump around to, you're taking a different perspective, different view, and then when you go to a smaller company, they can use a lot of those processes they might not have known about. So yeah, I mean, I kind of take the perspective of try and go big first, and then later, maybe even like mid career or just before your mid career, like I guess like after 2 3 years, you can look to go to a small company if you've got the right experience. But yeah, with that being said as well, do you want to quickly explain like what your role is in Banked and what you're sort of doing, and then we'll talk about what sort of salary range you're on since the move.
So yeah, I guess I think my title is technically back-end engineer. So I'm just writing Go. We're writing, so we've got an existing system right now. I'm in the global payments team, so we're working on making that work in the US and the rest of Europe, and hopefully make it expand also and go even further than that. That's the area we're looking right now. There's only 3 of us in this team, so it's quite a lot of like work for each of us to be doing that. But yeah, it's good. It's completely greenfield stuff. We're working with an existing platform, but we're writing brand new services to like migrate away, and then eventually everything will be brand new. So we've got quite a lot of impact on what technologies we're using right now, and we're doing a lot of work figuring out what we're doing. So average day right now is probably like where it's quite small and there's not like it's quite small. We don't have to have tons of meetings, which is really nice. So we start kind of stand up 10 a.m. Give a brief update what we're doing, what we're looking at, what we did yesterday. Nothing too heavy. And then just working on a lot of it's kind of like exploratory work. So looking at how we could do different things, what tools we can use, what experience like all of us have got from previous companies that we can bring in, which worked, like things we want to avoid. There's a lot of kind of planning work almost for the next, like how we're actually going to do this eventually. So that's mainly what we're looking at doing right now, because I've been here for 2 months. We've only just started a team a few weeks before me. There was only one member of the team before that who was just kind of looking at how we're going to do this briefly. So we're very early days still. So there's a lot of coding though. It's a lot of like just smashing out a bit of code, seeing what it works, seeing how it would work, trying to figure out problems, review each other's work. That kind of side of stuff is basically it right now.
Yeah, I've got another friend who's obviously doing some sort of startup stuff, and if any of you guys know anything about startups, then there's different phases. You've got like seeding, and then you've got to get more investors in, and then at the end you try and deploy the product, and then from there you go, and there's a marketing to be done. There's quite a few phases to get a successful startup going. So obviously
you got to persuade everyone from the next stage to invest in you and why they should, and burn down charts, all that stuff. That's not my side, but
yeah, so
there's a lot to it.
Obviously, you would say that your role is very technical, right? I mean, if you quickly touch on the salary rise, so what sort of? I mean, I've already mentioned the title, so it's obviously you're earning more than 70 sort of K and like quite a young age, but you've also got to stress the fact that it's a very technical role, and technically speaking, you would have 13 years of coding experience, right? From 11.
Technically, if you just add up all the years, but before I started coding, so I've got a lot. I think what happened was, I don't even, was it like 60%? I think I got by moving, which is really good it's the market right now for mid-senior level roles. The market's crazy. Go is really heavy right now. There's not a lot of experienced developers doing Go. Quite a lot of new people, I think, who are just picking it up, but experience with Go is quite tough. There's a few other languages like it. But it's probably a decent amount of experience and exposure to different tools and just kind of understanding them, which is what can get you kind of like this direction, I think, and not just sitting still the whole time. Like you've always got to be actively learning stuff and picking up as much you can from everywhere you are, even if it's a low salary or something like that, you can still pick up tons of knowledge, can't you? You've got to make the most of everywhere you are.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, again, you got to remember that you just got to you got to try to get the best at what you can do, and then, like you said, you went into a certain industry, right? So if someone else is in, let's just say, I don't know, let's just say you're in a construction industry, and you go in and you're in a small or in a large company, you try and get as much as you can, and then if you see a smaller company trying to get up, and you think that you can add a lot of value, that's your time to move, possibly double, triple your money, and take what you can and bring it up. And everyone's trying to get into that position, right? So
everyone has different knowledge from everywhere they've been, so everyone can kind of bring something new. So it's just learn as much as you can to bring as much as you can to the next place, and they'll see it probably. Like if your interviews aren't too horrendous, like I was quite lucky with my interviews, they were quite nice. They felt more like chats, so they kind of understand you and know what you've learned and like how you think a bit more. See how you can fit in with them, because I wasn't actively looking either. I wasn't applying outside. I kind of opened up just to see what it was about, but I wasn't actively applying. I think this was the only job I actually interviewed for to leave Amex. I didn't look anywhere else.
Yeah, I think even now I treat all my interviews as a conversation because you kind of,
Yeah.
especially like if you work hard and you know you're adding value somewhere and you feel like you're getting, I guess, underpaid or undervalued. At the end of the day, every interview is a conversation. You're gonna see what they can do for you. They're gonna see what you can do for them. It should be a friendly conversation, but
Two-sided.
yeah,
Every interview should be. Yeah.
professional as well. So that's kind of where it went from. So I guess
Yeah.
that being said, now I mean, you've kind of you've only worked at what, so 2 companies since you've left, so Amex and now Bank.
Yeah. Amex and Bank. Yeah, that's the only two I've been.
Sort of. What are you like? Yeah, obviously a lot of people ask like, what are your plans for the next 5 years, 10 years? But what I like to go shorter term because I feel like if you're ambitious, you kind of want to do things as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence, as they say. So what are your plans for the next 3 goals in terms of? I guess one would be maybe salary now that you're at a level, or if you're not salary, then title. Where would you want to be? Maybe in this company or anywhere else, and I guess even personal goals in terms of would you want to buy a house or
Yeah.
any other companies you want to work for in that time.
Yeah. So I'd say still probably working for this company. As far as like, if I'm moving, I'm not really planning on it for a long time. I think this company's really good so far. Like, I'm loving it. If I start hating it, then it might change. But 2 months in, still loving it. Obviously, the pay's pretty nice. The work we're doing feels good. So I'm not looking at moving at all. Maybe going towards a more senior role. Could probably go to senior back-end engineer would be quite nice. That's probably a good goal. But as far as like senior goes as well, you stop coding as much. So it's whether I love coding too much or what. But see how that goes. There's no direct goals with that, honestly. I think biggest thing I'm doing now is just paying off student finance. My student loan is 50 grand right now, so that can go as soon as possible. Whilst the interest is making it massive.
Let's touch on that because prior to you mentioning that, I never actually realized. So if none of you guys know, and obviously it's weird because in school they tell you don't worry about your student loan. It's just like another tax. Don't worry about it. But actually, if you're looking to make a lot of money, you should worry about your student loan, especially when you start earning, I guess, I would say even over 50K, because the way student loan works is that the lower you earn, the less interest is on your loan. And as soon as you go above 50K, you've got, I think it's 50K, right? 4.5% interest.
I think it's 3% plus RPI. So, yeah, it can get pretty big.
Yeah,
and
so,
you're talking like, mine's 50 grand right now. So that's not a small amount of money. It increases by every year.
And then what happened is, over the long term, you'll end up paying back, what is it? I guess 50% more on top of what you're currently.
Yeah, what I calculated is like my pay, I would actually pay it off like without, like with the minimum payments, I'd actually pay it off in about 12 years, I think. But in them 12 years, I would have paid 70K, whereas it's sat at 50 right now. So it'll gain 20 grand in interest.
Yeah, that's basically a deposit on a house, right? So
yeah, so I'm putting as much as I can into it, I think, get rid of it to not pay 20K extra. Because I think if you're on a lower amount, yeah, it's fine. It's just the student tax, right? You're not going to pay it off in the 30 years. It'll just go. It's completely fine. But if you don't want to just waste that money and you are going to be on more, then I'd say get rid as early as possible, because that interest really does build up really quickly.
Yeah, I think what we looked at it was that you're only paying. How much are you paying off a year compared to how much is being added on? It's only. It's not a couple. It's less than like. It's a few £100, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I can't remember now. My old one, I think it was increasing by 100 every year or something like that, based on what I was being paid. Yeah. Whereas now I'd be paying more than the interest, at least. But
exactly. So
still,
that's crazy to think that your student loan, even though you're paying the minimum amount, was going up £100 every year.
Yeah.
And obviously, like when you get to a certain point, you start actually only paying £100 off every year, so you're better off getting out. But again, that's just food for thought.
Yeah.
Something that people probably should look into. Where
it all depends on what your goals are, where you think you'll be in a few years. Like if you hit that 50 grand point, then yeah, you probably want to think about getting rid of it if you can.
Yeah, because I wasn't thinking about it until you mentioned it, and that's when I realised. So
yeah, I've been on and off of thinking about it, and then realising I'm now in a situation where I should. It just hits you randomly, really quickly.
So I guess we've gone through all your experience. We've gone through where you're currently at and how you got there. So, what sort of advice would you give to graduates or other people moving to a career in tech to get to, I guess, where you are? Obviously, relatively
Yeah.
young. Some people might be older, but what would you say that they need to do now to say maybe within the next 5 years try and get to a position if they wanted to, like where you are? What experience should they try to build? What jobs should they try to look for to build up that, like maybe certain industries, like you said, finance maybe, or other places, and what education, what maybe certifications should they go for to also get to that sort of point?
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole thing, I think it's all about learn as much as you can um, in areas that are actually useful. So I think interview prep is good for getting you the job, but like depending on the job, you won't have to do that style of interview. I didn't do any like leak code, hacker rank, whatever you want to call it. I didn't do any of those. So I can get you into a job at least, but I don't think that'll help you at all outside. Maybe some logical stuff it'll teach you. Um, I always say probably focus on like microservices is a huge name right now. Everyone's doing it, so that's something that like you should be aware of. Learn different techs. Like I put a lot of time into Kafka, so that's the whole event-driven style. That's quite big right now as well. Languages doesn't really matter too much. I think some are more saturated than others. Like I said earlier, Go is quite in demand right now for experienced people. I don't know how much about entry level. American Express will look for entry level, like people who haven't got Go experience to do Go. But that's because they're so big, they can afford to do that. Smaller companies, they're always going to be looking for more experience because you can just walk in the door, start working for them, do some work within your first week even. That's kind of what they want you to do. So I definitely say like focus on tech that's actually is being used. So if you want to go for huge money, if you just want to focus on that, learn something like Rust, Go, Scala. I think they're the top kind of paid languages because there's not many developers in it. But entry level, I think, is quite tough right now. I'm not really sure exactly what you can do. Look for the big jobs. Big companies will probably be looking for more entry, more than anything. That'll get you somewhere. If you're doing a career change, even like some of the boot camps can be good, or like the apprenticeship scheme. You can get some apprenticeships. That's probably what I'd do now if I could find one. Like even with uni, like if I like could do that pre-uni, I probably would. Because I could teach you the industry skills instead of uni skills.
Yeah.
That's probably I think that's a good way to go. There's loads of jobs in finance. There's always going to be money in finance, tons of it. So there's tons of jobs around for it.
Just touching on that as well. Like I think it's important that if you are going for a career change and like you can't find a job, I guess like you said, higher paying, go somewhere, take a salary cut, just do it for a year because in that year, what you got to do is you want to push as hard as you can to learn. So don't worry about the company, don't worry about other people, make it about yourself. Get whatever certifications you need in your industry in that year. Try and get the company to pay for it. And even after a year's time, you might find that you might be able to double your salary. So well, I could touch upon a few people that I know that have kind of done this in different areas, different industries. Obviously, I'm going to share my story on the automotive industry and how I've got there. So in a separate video, but this is Charlie comes from a finance background, so I guess it's important to know what sort of languages you want to look for in sort of that area. But again, like you kind of said, like, the next sort of part was to advice on new technologies to look for and highest paying jobs and stuff. So you've kind of already mentioned that. So
Kind of covers that. Yeah, all I'd say is learn as much as you can, build yourself up in as much knowledge, because that's what you bring to the next company.
I mean, I'll take that as I'll take that as the lesson to take away as well. Then so.
Oh, there you go. We've done the whole thing. Nice and easy.
Learn as much as you can.
But
no, I think again, I hope this provides valuable insight to anyone who's looking to, I guess, make it big, like Charlie over here.
Yeah, that's all I've done is just learn. So that's all I would say. Hopefully.
I guess it even goes to show that even if you're not looking about, if you're in the right space, people will look for you, and opportunities come to you. So, it's very much in, what space you're in. So maybe do a bit of market research, see where everything's going. Obviously, right now, if someone's looking for you, and I'll mention, blockchains and cryptocurrencies are going up sky high. If you're in that space, you might be in demand. What else is there? I mean,
A lot of startups in that industry. So
low code. We're talking about low code, right? So people who can build low code sort of environments or even tools. There's a lot of startups or smaller companies right now that are building those, like, what are they, like small tool sets to be like, oh, if you want to integrate your, for example, ServiceNow with AD and stuff, we can all do it here via a flow. You just drag and drop, and that's where a
Yeah,
lot of people are going towards. So if you can,
it's only getting bigger too.
yeah,
Not
doesn't
going anywhere.
doesn't mean developers are going to die. They're going to need developers to do that. Of course, for more custom and specific and difficult integrations or
Exactly.
whatever, that'll always be, and that's probably where more money will be, because a lot of people will fall off the whole coding thing, and then you need proper experienced people, and if you can be one of those people, then again, that's where money's going. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll close it out there, I guess. Thanks, Charlie.
Cool. Cool. Thanks.
Just want to say thank you for watching, guys. Just closing out this video now. So obviously, after speaking to Charlie about everything, I think the main lesson that I took away is that I've obviously got goals to get to a certain salary by a certain age. But after speaking to Charlie and understanding the opportunity out there, it's definitely meant my ambitions got a bit further. So I'm thinking by 25 I wanted to be on this much, but now actually I feel like I might be able to attain that earlier in my career. Again, like Charlie said, the main lesson he would want everyone to take away is learn as much as possible, regardless of your career or where you're currently at, the role you're doing. Just focus on learning. So the more you learn, the more you'll be able to show when you get to your next sort of interview for that role, and that should help you then secure a role, whether that's doubling or tripling your salary. It's definitely possible. And again, if you haven't watched my sort of my career to where I am right now, I'll make sure to put a link below or put a pop-up somewhere, so you guys can watch that. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate anyone. If you enjoy this sort of content, make sure you give a like on the video, subscribe, because there's going to be a lot more coming. And if you have any questions for myself or Charlie, just put them in the comments and I'll try to answer them as best as possible. Peace out.